I hope you got a chance to see my interview with Dr. Eben Alexander, the remarkable brain surgeon who was 40 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list with his book, Proof of Heaven. His extraordinary experience of being in a coma so deep with his brain completely not having any ability to function, and how he came back from that against all possible odds. Well, one of the stars of that story was Susan Reintjes, and she is the remarkable psychic that the family reached out to reach him when he was in that deep coma. This is my interview with Susan Reintjes. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Next Level Healing. I am so thrilled for my guest today. She is Susan Reintjes. She is the psychic featured in the 40-week New York Times bestseller Proof of Heaven by Eben Alexander, MD, which tells of her communication with Dr. Alexander during his coma. As a Jungian psychotherapist, psychic healer, and author with over 4 decades of experience, Susan facilitates profound transformations for clients in all areas of life, including intimacy, health, relationships, and career. Her first book, Third Eye Open, Unmasking Your True Awareness, now in its third printing, is a guidebook for developing psychic abilities and interpreting daily spiritual lessons. Dr. Alexander stated that Third Eye Open is a welcoming guide to the home of the true self. Oprah Winfrey commissioned her for psychic consultation, and she lectured at the Rhine Center for Psychical Research and the International Association for the Study of Dreams. I'm so excited to have you here, Susan.
Thank you so much for having me. I've just been looking forward to this very much.
Aw.
So glad I'm here.
Well, for everybody, what is the third eye?
Yeah, so the third eye is in the center of your head, but kind of if we're going to locate it on our body, it's in the forehead, and it is the eye. Rumi says, the poet Rumi says, "Close your two eyes to see with this eye." So it's the psychical eye, and it's the eye that can see things that these eyes can't see. So it can see beyond. It could see beyond. It could see somebody or get a message from beyond what you could physically do with communication that we're aware of. So it takes you beyond that. So it's telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience, which is all the different ways that we can receive information, separate from our computer or books or our physical eyes and ears.
And let us know about some of the history of this third eye. And is it the pineal gland?
Yes, exactly. It's located in the pineal gland in the center of the brain, and I think the research in it is just beginning, because I've found that in the Rhine Center where I work in Durham, and they do some experiments with seeing how it is stimulated. I think I'd have to actually probably have the probe on my pineal gland, and I have not volunteered to do that, but I think that they'd find the stimulation of that when you're doing, like I'm doing, the mediumship, which is communicating with people or getting information from people that have died or people in coma. So I'm sure the pineal gland is just like, just definitely firing at that time. And I have to, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot of cultures that have, like the Egyptians, they
Yeah.
depicted a lot, and they were very into exploring the netherworlds. Anybody who's followed the show a lot, I've done a lot of Dr. Joe's work, and Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he's very much into the pineal gland. And there's great video on YouTube that shows, incredible dissection of the brain, and that cross section that very much looks like the Eye of Horus.
Yes, exactly. And you're right. It shows up in so many iconic images from the millennials, right? And then Frida Kahlo loved to paint her third eye with monkeys coming out of it and things, the Frida Kahlo, the artist. So yeah, it's been very, very much studied and aware of it as well. And in India, and I think it's so interesting because it has more information than we have without it. So to me, I know you already do so much of this work with people, helping them go under the conscious into the subconscious, which is kind of where we make the Freudian slips and where we might have our car takes us home when we're supposed to go visit a friend. Like that's the subconscious. And then there's the unconscious. And that's what the third eye really loves is the unconscious. So that's a layer below, as you already know, of course, but it's like this layer where dreams come from and where people go in coma. So they go below the subconscious and into the unconscious. And in that place, there's more information for the big self, for the real self. That's where the real self kind of hangs out with its with its peers, with its buds. Yeah.
Take us back in time a little bit because what you do is so highly unusual, and the efficacy with which your work has helped people in the real world, the real 3D world, or the shadow world. I don't know how you want to phrase that. But what was it like growing up for you? How did you know that you were different? What was that experience like?
So I was kind of different. I grew up in a scientific family. So they were always Susie stories, which meant that I was probably lying because I was seeing things that nobody else could see. So super imaginative, always in the woods. Animals would kind of come near me. Squirrels would kind of run across my lap. I'd find little baby birds and take them in. So a lot of animal nature. And I think part of why I can do this is I'm like the bumblebee. Maybe I've heard that doesn't know it can't support itself with its wings. I've heard that I don't know if that's completely myth, but it's that idea that I don't know I can't do it. So I just do it. And it's, I think since I was little, I had that imagination and that kind of belief in fairies and other worlds and, things that are right beside us that we can see but can't see. And I think that helped me also. I remember as a kid, I would sit in my room and little, like 4 and 5, and focus on a window. And I think go then into kind of a little altered state or trance. And I'd kind of lose time, and I don't know quite where I went. And I was also very frightened of the dark because I think there was a lot happening in the dark when I was in the dark. Um, and so then that developed, and then I developed actually anorexia nervosa and bulimia. So I went into this huge crisis, but it was through that anorexia, bulimia, and my, Jungian kind of therapy that I went through. And I think that was my reaction, kind of like, get me out of this world. This world is too hard or too real or too concrete. And through that healing the eating disorder, then I was able to go deeply into yoga, meditation, grounding, a lot of grounding because I already had the lifting up, but I didn't have that earthy grounding through the body. So it was really quite a saga, very scientific family, didn't quite know what to do with me. So I just kind of had to move away, from that.
Somebody with such a incredibly spiritual wisdom have the eating disorder. I'm really curious how those two interacted with each other.
Hey guys, studies are showing that 68% of people that watch podcasts regularly don't click the subscribe button. Do me a huge favor. If you like this content, click subscribe so other people know where to go for the cool stuff. Thank you.
Well, I think I tell people I was spiritually advanced and emotionally arrested, developmentally arrested. So I think some light beings come in, or indigo children, or whatever you want to call them, but they have issue or trouble with the physicality of being in this realm. So much easier for me to be in the other realms. So that's why I immediately started yoga, a lot of standing poses, a lot of grounding. And I think the anorexia was my way of just like, I think I want to leave. I think this is too hard. And then it was like, no, this is not too hard. This is, you can't go, you have to stay. And then the eating disorder was, I think, my dealing with my family, my dealing with not certain, how I was going to be a sexual being, a physical being, and just kind of a little escape, right? A little back door. And then it was like, back door closed. They pushed me up front into the real world, worked years with healing that eating disorder. And I see a lot of sensitives that have eating disorders because they're not sure, like, I don't know how to do this. I know how to do the other, the more psychical, or the more, it's almost the more warm and loving. I mean, when I go to those other realms, it's different there. It's really nice. And so this is not an easy planet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the anorexia came from me looking for kind of an escape route, which I wasn't allowed to take,
Yeah. Interesting. Um, Were there any times that you thought, am I crazy? Did you doubt?
I never thought I was crazy, but I have a lot of clients who say, am I crazy? And so why didn't I ever think I was crazy? I don't know. That is such a good question, Tara, because I just always thought it was so real to me that I didn't ever think I was crazy. Sometimes I question what I'm doing down here, like the red light stop and the green light go, which makes me, sometimes I wonder, am I doing it right? Did I do the banking right? Did I do the Zoom right for Tara? But I don't question the other realm at all. It's so certain in me. And I get full body chills. So I get this goosebump. I'm getting it right now. Just goosebump when I'm in the true reality, or if I'm talking to a client in coma, or maybe I'm trying to reach someone that had died and get information about the will or something. I'll have this chill, and that's like you're in it. You're in the flow.
When did you realize that the experience that you were having, that I guess in some ways was more real than real for you, and you didn't question, you didn't ask yourself if you were crazy because you just knew it was real. But when did you understand that there was a utility in this world, that learning, that wisdom could be helpful in 3D for yourself and then for other people?
That's a great question. So what I did was, I was doing it a lot for myself. And then I went to a lecture, and there was a Dr. William Roll who worked with poltergeists, and he was the lecturer. And I asked him one question during the lecture, and then I was leaving, and he came up to me, kind of wove through the crowd, and he said, "You have got to go to this school, a psychic school, like a Hogwarts." It was amazing. And he said, "You have to go." And I was like, "Okay, I'll go." And so at that point, I was teaching French in a private school. I had my little side, left brain psychical part, but I was teaching French and teaching dance and starting their dance program. I went to the school, the Delphi University in Georgia, and it actually started in North Carolina, and now it's in Georgia. And I just found my people. It was just so lovely. And we did hauntings and past life and healing, psychical healing, and mediumship. And I was just in heaven. I was just in heaven. And so then I started my practice, I think after a summer of that, and then kept getting training. But our practice started just one day. I just quit this teaching and just thought, I need to do this. This is what I need to do. So it happened kind of spontaneously and kind of quickly.
And did you do standard Jungian therapy? You became an actual therapist, or
yeah, I'm not exactly. I'm Jungian based, but I don't have my Jungian analyst degree. But I've studied in the Jungian Institute in Zurich, but not to the full 8 years or whatever it takes. Right. But I had been in therapy for so long, analyzing my own dreams and working through an eating disorder, that I just kind of knew this. I knew from my own. You know how I think Abe Lincoln sort of knew how to be president because he just experienced life rather than had a psychology degree, right? So exactly. To be even better than, I think I would have been kind of broken if I'd been a psychiatrist or a regular psychologist, right? And so it just sort of opened, and I kind of went from there. And then people just came, all sorts of people. The bank president would send his wife to ask about money, where to put it. And then I'd get somebody who'd lost a child, and I'd find the child would tell me something that only the mother knew. So the mother felt comforted. And, it just unfolded from there. Such interesting, varied people that come to me. It's kind of all over the place.
So give us some stories about that, because they're fascinating. And, have the stories evolved and changed over the years? You've been practicing for so many decades. I have to imagine, how would you characterize the way you were in the first decade of your practice compared to now?
It's very similar. And I've never been asked that question. But one of my first situations was a young man who they were on a family trip. Someone broke into the hotel room, killed the son. It was just so scary and hard, and the family was just broken. And so the mother brought me his helmet, his motorcycle helmet, his pillow. I tuned in and I said, he's got a diary of poems and messages for you behind the wall. And they were like, behind the wall, behind the wall. So there wasn't a door or anything, but they did go back. They found a little piece of the baseboard, came out, they found his diary. It had a lot of premonition about that he was going to die. It was so interesting that he had any premonition, because this looked like a random murder. But possibly it was past life, or he just knew when he was a soldier in these, he kept saying, I was a soldier, I killed, I might die young. I mean, it was like he had premonitions. And I think the family felt comforted that he wasn't like completely shocked or completely out of himself. And that again, it could happen like it happened again maybe last week. It's so interesting, Tara. It has not changed that much. It has, I mean, of course I've grown, but I find the same facility of just slipping in. Yeah, what a great question. I'm taking a minute to this fathom it, because it started so clearly, boom, you're in. You'll do mediumship. Now the coma didn't come for a while, is true. The coma came later. Relationships, eating disorders, people struggling like you see with blocks, right? Complexes, neuroses that can't get over. I'm always telling people, let's get the root of that and jump over it. Let's pull out the root of that kudzu and then get you planting something new. And then there was a shift before Eben where a client's partner got pushed under some sheetrock and broke bones and was intubated and was panicking about the intubation coming out, thinking they were torturing her. I think in a hospital, you feel like you're being tortured even when you're being helped, because they're doing these weird things to you. And
My father, when he woke up from having been intubated, he said, I just had the worst nightmare imaginable. And it wasn't a nightmare, it was being intubated.
it was real life. So I can go in and tell them, everything is good. These people are helping. And she completely relaxed. They got her unintubated. I mean, she had been flailing and throwing things. And so that's where the first coma was. And then so the mediumship kind of came from that first one. That coma one was within the first 5 years, though, of kind of opening the practice. And then with Eben, I had done some coma, not a lot, but when I did hear about Eben, I just put my dinner away. I remember dinner was in the oven, put it in the fridge, sat down, and just had to go deeper than I've ever gone before. And I kept throwing this line down. It's sort of a feeling of fishing. You're sort of diving, but you're also sending something down, like a probe. And the surprise for me, Tara, was that he remembered. I mean, that to me is the extraordinary part. Not that I reached him, like he remembers. It's like amazing, right? He said his wife, where's Susan? And she was like, she's in North Carolina. She's not here. He was like, yes, she is. She's here. I need to see her. And Holly was trying to explain to him, well, she's here, but not here. And I was about 250 miles away. And anyway.
Let's recap that a little for the listeners that aren't intimately familiar with Dr. Eben Alexander's story.
Yes.
He became more brain dead than arguably anybody. He had
oh my gosh, he was flatlining. He was so flatlining.
His brain was mush, and
he had a bad infection in his spine, went to his brain. He was flatlining. I remember telling him, you can't go yet. You're not done. And you can't figure out how to get out of this. He kept saying, what do I do? And I was like, you can't do anything. You can't use your brain. He was very left brain, very sciencey. So I said, just relax. And the first thing that people often do is just say, I'm so sorry that I hurt ... And I'm so sorry I did ... First of all, they're just like, I feel like a priest, and they're confessing. And then I'm like, okay, that's good. Well, we can work with all that. And now come on back. I've been with people that didn't come back sometimes, right? They're on the way out, but a lot of times people aren't done yet.
Yeah.
But it looks like they're semi-dead. It looks like they're not going to come back.
Well, from a medical standpoint, it's virtually impossible for somebody to have come back after what Eben Alexander had experienced. It was a rare form of meningitis, I believe.
Oh, rare form of meningitis. Exactly. I think it's like something burst and meningitis just spread with his whole body immediately. Exactly.
In 24 hours, he went from functioning to.
Exactly. He just dropped down.
And what was so precious about that story, though, is that because he was a brain surgeon, neurosurgeon, and he was able to document what had happened to him, because nobody from a standard medical perspective would be able to have a functioning brain and think anything. And yet he was having a more real than real experience.
And that he remembered that I reached him at that depth is amazing me. And the other amazing person in this story that made it all happen was, okay, so his wife, I wasn't that close to Eben at all because he was very science, but his wife was an artist who taught school with me. And it was one of the teachers from that school back in 1980 that I knew her, said, Holly, I'm going to call Susan. And Holly, who knows me really well and knows everything I do, she was at the deathbed of her husband with her boys. She didn't think right of me. She was just like in shock. So Sylvia called me, and that's when I did it. So Sylvia's the hero. And then Eben is the star for remembering. I can't believe he remembered because we were talking way, I mean, I was just like pulling. Come on, Eben, come on. Back up. And so the fact that he remembered, that's the first time that has ever happened, that somebody comes back. Like I can get trivia from them. I can tell the family. And there is one more that I think you would probably love hearing about that wasn't as startling as Eben at all. But it was a woman that called me. Her mother was pretty much had been coma, and it looked really bad, meaning that it looked like she was not coming back. And the brothers were, we need to let her go. The daughter felt something was very wrong with that. So I tuned into the mother, and she was screaming at me telepathically, I am not gone. Do not pull any plugs. Do not take my breathing away, whatever. So I told the daughter she wasn't ready. Within, I think, about 12 hours, she woke up. She came back for 6 more weeks, had really good time with her family, and then died in her sleep. So sometimes it's just, the person can't tell you, but it's like being locked in syndrome where they're conscious in some ways, but they can't communicate it. So
with the coincidences that happened with Dr. Eben Alexander, can you talk about coincidences and how maybe they're not such coincidences?
Synchronicity is the most amazing gift that I think I've been given on this planet, is the delight of synchronicity. And so it happens all the time for everyone. So if you start paying attention to it, you'll think it's happening more. And it is happening more because you're giving attention to it. But this idea that you just happen to be at this place, at this time where this encounter happens, it makes me totally know that there is this giant benevolent force that is just orchestrating all these connections and all the beauty of it. So the synchronicity, I was looking in my book about that chapter. Oh gosh. So there's a couple ways that it can happen. One way is that it can happen if you can actually bring it on a little bit by doing like this kind of thing, go into a meditative state, just relax, write down 10 things that just pop into your mind, no matter what they are. It can be elephant and hose and whatever. And then put that away. And then the next day or two, take it out, or the next week, take it out and see if you don't hit on something that you didn't know about. So it's this time warp. It's this idea that time is not linear, that it's kind of folding in on itself, that the past and the present are happening like right now. So that kind of folds into synchronicity. I had one encounter where I was at home and this was a good one. So I'm at home. I'd never walk on the main road after dark, just single woman. It's just not a smart idea. But the voice said, leave now and walk to your neighbors. Well, it's far enough where it would be dark by the time I got there. So I'd be walking, and I was like, no, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm a good mother of myself. And then the little voice said, no, you just do it. You just go ahead. You really need to. And so I overrode my rule. I went there, and what had happened was her new little piglet and a couple other little pigs had gotten out. She had left the gate open. They were in the road. They were starting to just like move into acres of woods. So harnessed. I don't know how I did it, but I got all these little piglets back in their little place, called their mom, and she was waitressing, and she said, "I'm leaving. I'm coming home. Can I bring you some food?" I was like, "Well, that'd be great." And so she drove home, and of course, then she drove me to my house. So it was like there was this something that knew this was going to happen, and it happened another time when there was flames on her roof. The same woman, I was told to walk there at this time, and there were some flames on her roof from her stove, and so it was the same sanctuary woman. So it's that idea. So that's that psychic connection. So that's a little bit, tiny bit different in a way, but the same idea of just things are, I mean, that is partly third eye going in, right? To kind of hear the voice. But the chance that you think of a friend and then they call and really this friend was from fourth grade and you haven't seen them. And then there's an email. These things are like, they're constantly happening. And they're so fun and beautiful.
Tell us about dreams, because you write a lot about dreams. And what are they? And why are so many of them scary?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question, too. So dreams are, okay, we talked about conscious, subconscious, unconscious. The unconscious has your soul map already there, and it feeds you information as you can take it. So dreams are information as you can take it. So in my book, Third Eye Open, I say, there's no such thing as a bad dream. So a bad dream is good, meaning that it's just giving you some material that's a little scary or maybe shadowy to you. Like shadow just means it's in the shadow. You don't know it very well. So I think scary dreams can come when you kind of are confronted with a part of you or a feeling that you don't really want to face. Like I think I had a dream where I killed my mother with a butter knife. Now that's interesting for an anorexic, right? To kill the controlling mother complex with a butter knife, so that could be looked at as a bad dream. But I think it really freed me from being kind of overrun by the mother complex that I had from my upbringing. So they're so valuable, and they'll show you, like you'll dream about somebody famous or somebody that you know or somebody that you don't like at all from school or whatever, and that's a part of us. So then it's like, or maybe I think African Americans dream about white as their other, and we might dream about an Indian woman as my other because it's different from me. But then I'm learning about another part of me, like a foreign part, but that I want to maybe bring in and become more familiar with. So they're symbolic. They're not direct. So you could kill somebody in a dream and it could be very positive because maybe I needed to kill the negative mother, right? I needed that. The mother actually in the dream was going to actually take me and sell me to a tribe. So it was good that I killed her. But, that was the not so good mother, right? In that dream. So I think even bad dreams, just look at them, write down the symbols. Maybe if you dream about a person, write down 3 adjectives and go, okay, so let's say you say mean, angry, and loud, and then you're kind of quiet, nice, and so maybe you need to get a little more in touch with your angry, loud self. Not maybe with everybody in public, but maybe you need to write down some angry, loud words in big writing. And then you'll have another part of yourself able, if you did need to set a boundary or to, stand up to someone who is maybe bullying you or envious of you and not treating you well.
What about lucid dreaming?
Oh, that is such an interesting phenomena, isn't it? So I went to a class of lucid dreaming recently, and that night, so the teachers were saying, like, change your sheets, take a bath, be sweet to yourself, go to bed, let's see what you do. So I'm in the dream that night, and I see a man changing a bed, and I'm like, I haven't seen a man change a bed in a long time. That's just because I live alone and not because men don't change their sheets. But it was my teacher changing the sheets, and I went, oh my gosh, you're my teacher. So I got lucid. We sat down and talked about lucid dreaming, and I woke up and went to the bathroom and thought, shoot, I didn't fly because I wanted to fly. I went back to sleep. I dreamt that a sink, a porcelain sink with a beautiful gooseneck faucet, came up out of the mud, crystal pure white. And I went, that's not real. I just got it, and then I went, oh, fly. And so I flew up in the scaffolding of this building and flew all around and then woke up from that one. And then I haven't had another one since. It's like, so there.
Great symbolism about the cleansing coming up out of the mud, like a lotus.
It was like a lotus. You're a good point. Exactly. Because the lotus is so beautiful. And we emerge from the mud, don't we? From the depths of the prima materia, that mud. So anyway, so lucid dreams are great. There's a wonderful Robert Wagner wrote the best book ever, Lucid Dreaming, and just study it, just go into it and invite your dreams to do that, because that's just so fun. It's like another reality. I have friends that are in a dream and can rip the wallpaper off wherever they are and go up into the stars. I mean, I can't do that, but I'm like, okay, I think I'm too gullible.
You can do it. You can actually do it in the dream, isn't it?
I can, yes. And I'm so gullible that there's very little that I don't think is real. So I need to get over that. Right. But anyway, so yeah, lucid dreaming, very fun. And you're just kind of you have to watch for something and you have to say in the dream, this is a dream. You have to kind of wake up to the dream.
Yeah. And if you are capable of doing that and there's something scary there, which it seems to be a standard sort of feature to dreams also,
yes,
because of the nature of our being and our mind. I have heard that it's beneficial to either send love to it or go into it, but not be frightened of it, not push back against it, not fight it.
Exactly. If you could say, what do you want to teach me?
Yeah.
Why? Thank you for coming. Why are you here? Now, let's say you wake up. You're not lucid. Let's say you wake up. You can do that, which is just kind of awake dreaming. So you can just go into active imagination after you wake up and go back and picture that monster or that big dog, or sometimes it's a tiger, a leopard, and just ask them, why are you here? What can I learn? And just listen. And then that's a way to get it outside the dream if you don't go lucid within the dream. It's really cool because you can just take your dreams home with you and then come play with them. Yeah.
Now, renowned astrologer Stephen Forrest has said that your book will likely be here 100 years from now, still guiding people. What tips and tricks can you offer? Because I love what you said about writing, just taking a moment and writing down 10 things, no matter how bizarre they seem, because that almost seems like a precognition exercise.
It's so fun because you'll be like, I had a friend who just wrote down bouncing blue ball, and we did it on a yoga retreat. And that night we were on a bus and a blue ball bounced from the driver's seat down. And I went, Molly, you're a blue ball. So it just 10, just anything that comes to you, a snowflake, a dragon, a paper mache, whatever. And then just put it away for a little bit, bring it back out. And then you'll see, oh my gosh, how did I know that? Right? So dreams can also be very prophetic. So if you write your dreams down, be sure you read them back over, because they can have a lot of precognition in them. And sometimes I'll have a dream and I'll work on the dream. Like I had a dream that I was crossing the street in my hometown and there was a wounded seal on the crosswalk with a big gash in her neck. And I called the cops and they said, no, check your meter. And I was like, no, I'm not parking. There's a seal. You need to get the seal. It's going to hurt somebody. It's going to be hurt. And the guy said, check your meter again. And I just hung up. But when I woke up, I realized that my husband had been having an affair. So I thought, the seal, it's a wounded promise. When somebody has an affair, they've wounded the promise of the marriage, right? Of the ring, of the seal.
Yeah.
And so I cried a little bit and I worked through it. Well, that morning I went and had breakfast with a friend of mine. And on that same crosswalk, we happened to go to a restaurant downtown. As we were crossing back over, I crossed across the woman having the affair with my husband. I had the baby with me. We crossed and I said to my friend, oh my God, that's where the seal was. And that's where I crossed the infidelity woman. I get to my car and a policeman is giving me a ticket. He had checked my meter and I was so excited about the dream. I just said, that's fine. That's fine. And he said, I'll give you 2 tickets. They're like the second time I said, that's fine. And he just drove away. I mean, he couldn't handle it. I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. So
Wow.
and that day I turned a corner. I went and got a little swimming pool for my daughter. It lifted my spirits, even though I ran into that woman and that was so kind of painful and hard with this new baby because he left when I was 8 months pregnant. So this was a brand new baby. And I crossed her, but right where the seal was. So how did my dream know that was going to happen the next day? I have no idea. But dreams will help you get ready for things, get prepared for things, and then they turn into a good thing instead of a traumatic thing. So that
How do you write your dreams down though? Because you wake up, you're groggy, you're half awake, you're like, okay, I'll write it down in the morning, and then in the morning you can't remember.
I have a couple tricks. One I'm using right now. I put a blank piece of paper and a pen right at the top, and I write dream at the top. And as I'm going to the bathroom, I don't turn on any lights. I just write and be sure that I skip a line down. So you would write, okay, there was a monster, and then you jump. You don't want to write right on top. So you jump down, you have a whole page, and you jump down, jump down, jump down. And then maybe before you go back to sleep, you might turn it over. So again, it's blank in case you have another dream. That's one way. Don't turn on any lights. Just kind of feel your way to the bathroom and then go back. And I've been doing that lately, which has been working really well. People sometimes record them, get your voice memo and just keep your eyes closed. And, but people say the next morning, they're like, I don't know what was happening. So, it's like, so just do the best you can. Sometimes I have a light that's not direct, but very low, and I'll just scribble a few notations that will remind me. Sleep is more important than writing down your dreams. So people that are having trouble with insomnia, I'm like, just sleep, get your healing, get your rest. But if you do remember something, and you could try this page thing. It really works. So you have your pen at the top, you pick up your pen, and you know how to move your hand down to not write on top of yourself.
I'd have countless pieces of paper with scribble on it.
And probably scribble on top of it. Yeah.
And I try to make it so that the scribble is legible. And my mother gave me actually a really cool thing. It's a pen, but it's got a light on the end of it. So when you put
That's perfect.
that has helped a lot. So
It's a hard thing to do. It's hard because you don't really want to not go back to sleep, Yeah.
So what are some other of like the top 1, 2, or 3 practices that people can do to start opening up? Does everybody have the ability to open up that third eye?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now there's different levels of like singing, there's different levels of probably aptitude. But I think the most important thing is, of course, as you already know very clearly, the breath. So just spend time just saying, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. So you're just follow the breath. The mind will come in with, taxes and this and that. And you'll just say, I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out. It's almost like you tell your child, I'm busy now, I'm doing this. So I think if you keep following your breath, what that does is quiets down the noise of the ego in the brain, and then allows, because the third eye is constantly bringing you images, bringing you information, but it can't get through if the noise, as they say in Sanskrit, the vritti, I love that word, the vritti, sounds like little mosquitoes, doesn't it? All the little vritti in the mind, all the mind stuff. If you can breathe that into submission just a little bit, and then just waiting. I say also, I have no agenda and I have no plan. That's one of my best mantras. I have no agenda. So I'm with a client, somebody's dying, they need to find their child. I just recently helped find a missing person. And of course, my left brain is going like, what do we do? Where do we go? Where is she? And I have to completely obliterate that to then get possibly some information that could actually help. Mm-hmm. So you have to say, I have no agenda. I have no plan. I know nothing. It's like you know nothing. And then from there, the third eye kind of moves forward. And I would say relax into the back body. So we're often leaning forward and moving outward and coming from the front body. But if you just like my back body has me, and you go into the back brain, the lizard brain, and you kind of are like the simple woman in the village who just sees the butterfly, and she's not worried about her taxes. She doesn't even know what taxes are. And she sees a butterfly or a worm. You become very empty, and then something will pop in. And that's how the third eye operates best. So emptying out, follow the breath, chant, I have no agenda, I have no plan. And then it just comes.
And how does the pineal gland, the third eye, its relationship to, we know the left brain is that thinking, categorizing portion of our brain, and without it, we're actually blissed out and happy, and we don't know where our body stops and the rest of the world starts. I interviewed Jill Bolte-Taylor about that subject. It was amazing. But the right brain is that that blissed out, happy.
It's dreams and imagination. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how does that interact with the pineal gland? Does the pineal gland have like a special relationship with the right part of the brain?
You know what? I think, well, we need both, definitely, right?
Yeah.
But we need both. But I think that it's very interesting that the pineal gland is kind of in the middle of the mix, right? When first, I'm a drummer in a band, and I was learning how to drum. I could feel how the left was here, the right was here, and they were sharing information because you have to move your hands and your feet all differently. And my head actually got hot when I first started learning drumming. So I think the pineal gland could be an MC. And so what I tell people is see your left brain as this computer room with all these people helping you with all this information and all these queries and very good stuff. But what if you turned off the lights and sent everyone home and just closed that door? Then you walk across the hall, which is the pineal glands right in there. You walk across the hall, you open this round door, and there's this very soft lighting, waterfall sound, a bed perfectly contoured for your body, and you lie down. That's the right brain. That's what the right brain loves, is just you to stay open, like being in the ocean versus being on a ship. The ship is the left brain, knows where everything is. The right brain is so expansive and has no limits. And you really need both of them, or you don't know the red light from the green light, and that's not safe. All right. So it really is. But there is that book, The Emissary, and it's Servant or something like the emissary. If people look up The Emissary about the brain, it's the idea that the right brain is the more leading one, right? And the left brain is going along for the ride. So it's really interesting, right? Their jobs together. And we in our society, we really prize the left brain, and we've kind of dismissed the imagination, the artist, and it's shifting, don't you think? With this kind of work like you're doing
about it, and I think it's super exciting, like what Dr. Joe is doing, studying the blood and the actual brain waves, and with the breath work, stimulating the pineal gland, mapping brain waves that are 50, 100, 200 standard deviations, which is like mathematically impossible.
Crazy talk. Yeah. Crazy real. Exactly. So I think breath, letting go of your agenda or the ego's agenda. And also just, imagination. So people will say, but I'm making it up. I'm like, just write it down anyway. It's very similar. It sometimes feels like I'm totally making up. Like I'll say to the mother, she wants her bunny slippers. I don't know if she has bunny slippers or not, but she did have bunny slippers, and the mother brought them to the hospital, and that really helped. And, so you just have to kind of risk being wrong and not care, again, like the simple woman in the village who can't care about how you look or how it appears or if it's right or wrong. You're not going to be graded on it. All that school kind of influence that we have to suppress, and then watch the synchronicities happen and the miracles kind of unfold, and these magical encounters that happen, very much like meeting you today.
Do you recommend a regular meditation practice?
I meditate all over the place, and by now kind of it happens naturally for me, but absolutely, if you can, I tell people, the reason I don't tell them do that necessarily, because then they get discouraged when they don't do it, when they fail. So I just say, sit in your car when you get home and I have this quick and dirty way to do it. Take 3 sighs, 3 like that, and then 6 conscious breaths. So I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out 6 times. And you'll maybe want to go longer. Like, you'll tell people just do one yoga pose, right? Just do one yoga pose. But then you kind of want to do another one. So I'd say sit in your car, maybe before you go out, maybe before dinner, everything's fixed. Just do maybe just this for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 7 minutes, just what you can do. And just those little brief moments of touching in, I think really help. And so rather than a regular, I tell people that and they already feel like they've failed, it's like, but of course it's really wonderful if you can do that. Absolutely. And first thing in the morning, last thing at night, I just say, if you think of it and like, you can do it in 3 minutes. You can set a timer, do 3 sighs, 10 breaths, conscious breaths. You have changed your level and your vibration already. And then I think people get hooked on it. It feels really good. So they start doing it more and more.
What do you think about psychedelics? A lot of people have been diving into those recently.
Absolutely. So I never needed them. So I feel very open to people who might need them. I was so open as a child. I think they would have sent me backwards, right? Or closed me down. But I don't judge that some people may need those door openers. I'm a little concerned about people taking the hero doses and overdoing it because it can kind of burn your nervous system, and Kundalini rising too fast, it can actually do some neurological damage. So I tell people, slow down, less is more. Let's try this first, because I see people who are so sensitive. I'm kind of like, let's try natural first.
Yeah.
And maybe micro. So I have seen some cases where people overdid and it wasn't so good for them.
No, I've seen that too, and I sometimes describe my process as the psychedelics without the psychedelics because like you, it's a way to bypass the conscious mind, which is the whole trick. When your whole reality is this 5 to 10% of your brain, you're missing out on all that beauty that you've just been talking about.
Yes. And I think maybe easier for you and me to get there. So we got to remember we might be able to skateboard there, but somebody else might be crawling there. So sometimes, like I have with my clients, sometimes like a little Lexapro helps or a little medication helps when they've tried other things. So I'm not against it. I'm not judging ayahuasca or mushrooms or whatever, but I'm aware that sometimes sensitive people just can kind of blow their systems out a little bit and maybe try the slower route first. And then,
I totally agree. So have a lot of people come to you with coma situations since the publication of Susan's book?
Yes. And I had no idea. That would happen, but it's been so wonderful. I had twin brothers. One brother was dying and he was so far away on the other side of the planet. And we were able to connect them so that he could say goodbye before he died. And there have been a little brother and sister got in an accident skiing, and the daughter was just terrified. And I was able to calm her down. She was the bunny slipper girl. And the boy was fine. He was like, this is cool, but I can't breathe because all my ribs are broken. So I was like, yeah, don't worry about breathing. You're breathing, even though you feel like you're not breathing, able to really calm them down, and they come out of it, it's been really, really, I'm in the middle. I will do right after this podcast. I will help another person who was at a Joe Dispenza, actually. Yeah.
In Cancun, I was just there.
When she collapsed. Yeah. And so now we're trying to get her in a state where she can fly back to Germany. Yeah. I thought it was so synchronistic with you because I know I got chills all over my body. So it was so synchronistic because I knew you were at Cancun. She was at Cancun trying to get radical healing. She collapsed and was in a hospital in Cancun. So I was talking to Germany, Cancun, America, and just combining that. And I'm going to talk to them again now. So it's that, it just is, it's all over the place. It's so rewarding for me to help the family calm down, to be able to have the last wishes, or I'm coming back and I'm not done yet. Or if they are on their way out, then we can kind of, and often they're very far away. Like one's in a coma here and somebody's in Africa. So sometimes it's that I can't get to them, for days or whatever. And then, but we can make a Zoom call, right? We can triangulate a call in some ways and comfort everybody. And
Wow.
that's the most rewarding part. But I thought the Dispensa thing was very interesting because if you texting me at the same time, I was getting texts from them, texts from you at the same time. So at Cancun.
Wow. Very synchronistic. I see the sunlight there is going down. You're an hour ahead of me.
Yes, it's like already winter night, right?
Yeah.
Winter night.
Susan, I am so grateful, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. How can people find you? How can they reach out? How can they follow your work? How can they get started in it?
Yeah, so a couple of ways, thirdeyeopen.com or my name, susanreintjes.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
For those of you that who aren't hip to the spelling, it's REINTJES.
Exactly. And that's where Third Eye Open may be the easiest way. I think they're connected, right? So either my full name, and if you look up Third Eye Open in Amazon, to order it or whatever, then you'll see the spelling there. So that's another.
Put it on audio.
Well, somebody is doing it at the moment for me. My new potential son-in-law is reading all my books, and can I show my books for a sec?
Yeah, I got one right here.
Yeah, and this is the latest one, The Exchange.
Oh, wow.
The Exchange, and then there's Enchanted Parapet is one of them. This is my favorite about the bees, Gaia 2045, and they're all of it. If you look in the Amazon, you'll see. And then Through the Fairy Door, which is where I live, where I'm going to go when I die. I think I'm just going to.
Well, I hope you record some of them in your voice. I always love it when the author reads them.
Yes, I'm going to do. I know. I think because I'm so busy that it takes time to do that, right? But I think Joe will do a good job. But you're right. If maybe Joe can set me up with my little studio.
I feel like I get so much more of the.
I know, you're right. I should probably do Third Eye Open myself, but maybe he can do my others. You know what I mean? My fiction. Yeah. No, you're right. I think I would like to do that. Maybe I can get Joe to just make me a home studio and set me up, because it's the technology that's stopping me, not anything else, right?
We can help you with that.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's in my house, and it's not.
Noah, the magical Noah. Yes. Susan, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And everybody, we're so glad to have Susan Reintjes here with us today. If you got value of this, which I'm sure you did, please click the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next episode of Next Level Healing.
This podcast is intended for the purpose of providing information and education. It does not provide advice and is not meant to be used for any self-diagnosis or the replacement of any kind of licensed professional. The creators and individuals appearing here do not endorse any specific tests, positions, medications, products, or procedures. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.